Today on The American Land Seller, our guest brings something to the table that most folks in the land world aren't talking about, but should be. I'm joined by Alec and Carly Pavlinek of ASM Labs, better known in some circles as the Soil Tax Guys. These two are on a mission to educate landowners, farmers, and investors about the powerful tax advantages tied to something we walk on every day, soil. Specifically, we're digging into IRS Section 180, a little-known part of the tax code that allows for deductions tied to soil tax fertility improvements. Alec brings years of agronomic experience to the conversation, and Carly's background in strategy and innovation helps tie it all together in a way that's easy to understand, and even easier to apply if you own farmland. They're going to explain how proper soil testing, documentation, and lab analysis can open the door for real financial benefits, and share some stories of landowners who've already seen that impact. If you've never thought of soil as a tax asset, this episode might just change the way you look at the ground beneath your feet.
Welcome to the American Land Seller Podcast with your host, Kobe Rickertson. Kobe is an accredited land consultant and multi-state land broker with High Point Land Company. Join us each week as we explore all things land. We bring you fresh insights and expert guests on sales, marketing, regulations, economics, and so much more. Visit www.americanlandseller.com and find us on one of your favorite podcast platforms.
Okay, Kobe and our special guests, let's get started.
Hey, we're back here on the American Land Seller Podcast, and I think I don't know, this is just totally blows me away what we're going to talk about here today. I don't even know if I'm going to believe it's a real thing by the time we're done, but we'll see. Apparently there's aliens and there's tax loopholes that nobody even really knows anything about. We're going to learn about today. So I am joined by Carly Pavlinek and Alec Bean. Carly, did I get the name right?
Yes, you did.
Okay. These guys are with ASM Labs, and they are the Soil Tax Guys. How are we doing today, Alec and Carly?
Doing good. Excited to be here.
Good to be here. We appreciate the opportunity. It's going to be a fun conversation, especially a timely one, being right near tax time. So.
Yeah, I think we got a lot to cover, so I don't know that we're going to get to the UFOs or whatever they're calling it these days. But we can do is we can talk about how you guys became the Soil Tax Guys. So can you just give me an idea of this witchcraft that you guys are working with here, and I'll let both of you guys just kind of talk about what you're up to and how you can help my clients.
Yes. So it's Section 180 of the tax code. So people listening might be familiar with 1031. So 3 small paragraphs in the tax code that allows you to take a tax deduction on extra nutrients in your soil. So when you buy ag land, anything used for crop, cattle, livestock, we come in after closing and do a soil test. And extra nutrients is a tax deduction. So on average, $500 per acre tax deduction.
Wow, $500 per acre on average. Mm-hmm. So that could be more and it could be less.
Correct.
Some areas of the country have been very good. Some have been less good, but average has been 500, and our clients have been very happy.
So yeah, I just I had a guy call me with a little shy of 1,400 acre ranch in Arizona. So is Arizona and Nebraska, you're talking different soils, different possibilities?
Yeah, so every state has a land grant university, and we use that as our guiding star, more or less. So I'm an agronomist. I'm a certified crop advisor with the American Society of Agronomy. So I cut my teeth in the soil testing world. ASM was and still is a soil testing company. So spent my career in the agricultural consulting space. And so we use the land grant university information to determine where the thresholds are for these soil tests. So every state, again, has their own school. I think you mentioned New Mexico. So New Mexico, Arizona, excuse me. Yeah. So Arizona has the land grant school. I believe it's Arizona State, and they say you need X amount of pounds of nutrients per acre to produce an optimal crop. And so when we come in and do the soil test using these university approved soil testing methods, we hope that your soil test levels are higher than what those optimal levels are. And that difference between your test and the optimal level is what we assign a value to, and that the client then uses for a potential deduction.
Okay, that's fun. So let's rewind back to the beginning. Like, is this something that you've kind of just discovered and exploited, or is this like, because I haven't heard of very many people talking about this.
Yeah, we hear that all the time. So it's been in the tax code since the 1960s.
Sure it is.
But it hasn't become something that people are really starting to use until the past, 10 years. But we know accountants that have done it since the 90s. So it's just not talked about because it's such a small window of time where you can do it. It has to be, around time of closing and then doing the soil test before the new owner applies fertilizer. So once they apply fertilizer, we've had this happen where, they forgot applied fertilizer and we're like, okay, you missed the opportunity. We can't go back in time. So it's kind of tricky with this tax code. You really need to know about it beforehand, and then when you're buying land, contact us and to get it done.
Oh, that's kind of so there are some pretty strict rules. So this is something that every single land professional ought to have their head wrapped around this in order to make sure that that we're making these, just basically warning people don't fertilize. Let's see if you qualify. How does that work? Do I just get them in touch with you guys, or?
Yeah, that's the best way to do it, and then we'll answer any questions they have, and get them set up with the soil test. And that's just the main thing. It's getting the soil test done. Then once we have that done, they can fertilize, do whatever they want. Yeah.
And we kind of do this in a two-step process. So the first leg of this, first step is to take a soil test. So we have a soil test done. Then from there, once we have those results, I do a no obligation consultation, do an estimate on the value there, and say, okay, client, you have X dollars per acre in value. Is that going to be worth your time? Is that worth your accountant's time, your time? And if they say yes, that's when we move forward with the official report. So really, it's a win-win. If the value doesn't end up being worth their time, the worst thing that happens is they have a fresh soil test on a farm they just bought.
Right. And this goes beyond just like testing for fertilizer, right? You're doing a full blown. Like we just had a producer on a couple weeks ago that talked about, like their every 2 acre grid or something that he's getting tested every single year. That he's got like a $60,000, built into his budget to make sure this happens. But it also, so my guess is you guys are using the data for other things other than just taxes. Correct?
Yes. So on the back end, being that we've been an agronomic consulting company since the 80s, that's part of the value you get with working with us is you get to, you have your soil test, you get to hopefully take advantage of this piece of the tax code, and then moving forward, you can utilize our agronomic consultation services for, your fertility recommendations and things of that nature.
My company, High Point, is in a big footprint. You can provide agronomic services throughout most of the United States, or?
Yep. So to this point, we've helped clients from New York to California and North Dakota to Texas. So we've been everywhere. If you're selling or buying land in the United States, we can help you out.
That is very cool. So what kind of time frame are we thinking here? Like I'm thinking like a real estate agent and real estate broker. If I get a contract together, Is it so you guys wanted to like we should just email you along with the title company that we got a deal,
Yeah.
and have you or have our clients reach out to you
Yeah,
and
it's best to have the conversations when you're under contract because then, they have time to digest it, think about it, plan it, all that kind of stuff.
okay, very cool. So what else, guys? I mean, there's so much to this. Um,
Yeah, it's a great tool to use as you start to think of investment in properties. Like, let's say you make quite a bit of money every year. Buying some land and getting this tax deduction can be part of your strategy. So we've had a couple of clients. Alec, you can talk more about the one client that you go ahead and talk about
Yeah, yeah. So
him.
I've got a gentleman that's buying a significant portion of land, and he's been successful in other areas of business, but he is a farmer at heart. He has been a farmer his whole life, and so what he's doing is he's using these the dollars he saves in taxes, he rolls into more land purchases. So it's kind of this wash, rinse, repeat cycle where he buys a farm, he takes advantage of these tax deductions, he buys another farm with that cash, or helps with to bankroll the next purchase. So it's an incredible strategy, and taking advantage of all the pieces of depreciation and deductions that you can. That's just a smart business move.
Hmm.
so what's the rule on if you how long do I have to hold on to the property once I've got my tax deduction?
So there's really no rule on how long you have to hold on to it. It really becomes more of an economics question, because this will affect your basis in the property. So when you do go to sell that property, there is going to be a clawback in the form of right, in the form of tax. The government is going to want what you've been keeping from them. Now, the perfect scenario is a 1031 situation. So you
Sure.
buy a farm, you take this deduction, you roll that value into a 1031 on another property, and so you continue. Again, part of this whole farmland strategy is deferring taxes. And so if you're a 1031 buyer, if you're a buy and dyer, as I like to call them, this is an excellent strategy. So we certainly don't want to steer anyone away, but the person that is maybe flipping land quickly, it may not make as much sense for. But we can have a conversation about your strategy and see how this can fit into it.
Yeah, because like my thought is with a 1031 exchange, you have to hold on to it for a little bit. You can't just flip land doing that either. So it's but definitely for an investor that's going to come in and hold it for 5, 8 years, something like that, this is a great plan
Hmm.
Absolutely.
to do that. Well, guys, if you don't mind, let's take a quick break and we will be right back. The American Land Seller Podcast is brought to you in part by landhub.com. Join us today and experience the expertise of LandHub's land marketing professionals. Whether you're buying or selling, let us show you the way in the ever-evolving world of land transactions. Visit landhub.com and discover what the future of land marketing looks like. Landhub.com, where your land journey begins. All right, we're back with Carly and Alec from ASM Labs. They are the soil tax people, right? We go
Yep,
back to
soil tax
that.
guys.
The soil tax guys. I'll
Yeah.
get that by the end of this, I'm sure. So, so not everybody's probably going to qualify for this. Like immediately, if I was listening to this, I would probably be like super excited and call my accountant and try and get this set up. But this really has to do with like it's a 3-year window, and you can't have fertilized before you after you purchase the ground before you take a soil test, right? So, Alec, can you just let us know who's going to qualify for this? Who's this going to benefit?
Yeah. So how the code is written, it talks about those engaged in the business of farming, and on land that is in the pursuit of an agricultural activity. And the accountants and people that have kind of set up the guidelines for how this works, they kind of have a litmus test on how this works and how people can qualify. So, in order to take this, we need to establish the beneficial ownership of the fertilizer. Okay, what does that mean? Who owns this fertility that's in the ground? So it's very hard to argue that someone that buys the land doesn't also own the fertility in the land, right?
Right.
The next step is we need to establish the presence and extent of the fertilizer. Okay, that's when we come in and do the soil test. We are measuring how much soil fertility is out on this property.
Okay.
Next, the next piece is the basis to measure the fertility in the land. So what are we comparing your soil test, and what are we comparing your soil test to, right? So we say, all right, we have your soil test and we're going to compare them to the land grant university in your state. Okay. And then finally, the fourth point is the period of exhaustion. How long will these excess soil nutrients last you in growing crops? This is very much similar to the depreciation world, where we depreciate different items, say in a building or a fence or a tile, for different amounts of time. Part of our report does show how long these nutrients will last you in a normal cropping environment. So someone engaged in the business of farming, and if you can hit all four of those pieces, then you're good to go.
Mm-hmm. And I just want to add the other thing about material participation, that the owner has to participate in some type of way with ag. So we get this question a lot, oh, what is participation? And obviously that could be farming it could be cash rent, it could be mending fences, buying something, making decisions. All those types of things are participation in the farm and ag. So that's another portion of this tax code.
So collecting rent technically is a portion of. Is that what you're saying? And just to clarify.
So a lot of accountants look at rent and then, management of the farm through that collection of the rent as a participation. Again, we do want to make sure we say that we always defer to the accountant, right?
Okay.
We are not accountants, but that has been our overall experience, is that there's some level here that most accountants are willing to go for.
Mm-hmm. Or
Sure.
crop share. Crop share
Yeah,
too is
crop
another one that I
crop
didn't
shares are
mention.
great.
Yeah.
Sure. No, that's a great point, because you definitely have to make sure that the person, whoever the person's accountant is, because they're probably not going to go to a new accountant just for one tax code, section. So what happens? We talked about earlier. You have to have this soil test as an agent. Is that something that maybe I encourage my buyers or my sellers to do? Is, hey, we want to maybe check to do a soil test, so we have that available as an asset to our buyers?
Yeah.
We have a lot of brokers, or it's becoming more and more of a conversation with the brokers. They're telling their sellers, hey, that not only from the agronomic perspective would this soil test be valuable to a potential buyer, but also from this potential deduction. It's a nice little cherry on the top for a buyer when they can come in. Part of the marketing material is a soil test, and if they're savvy to this piece of the code, they can utilize our services to kind of get an idea of what may be out there. And then, of course, when they make the transaction, they can actually take advantage of that. So we do have a lot more people, brokers, starting to use soil tests as part of their marketing regimen.
That's smart, because then you at least have an idea. I guess another question I would have is, since this is becoming more and more popular, is there any reporting data where you can call you guys and say, hey, we have seen like this in your area, or is that not something that we're to yet?
Somewhat. So I'll give an example. So we did a property in Colorado, and it came in. There were two different tracks. Same area, owned by the same person. Probably taken care of in the same type of way since it was owned by one person, and then sold to two different people. We worked with both of them, and one came out as around 2,500 something per acre tax deduction, and one was 1,050 per acre tax deduction. And that was wild for us to see that difference. I mean, both great tax deductions, but to be in the same property, that was surprising to us. So it really just depends on how well it was taken care of and what was spread on there before.
Yeah.
The-
That's
the-
kind of insane too, if you think. I mean, like you're saying, it's an average of $500 an acre is what you're seeing as, but it can get, I guess, pretty valuable.
Yeah.
What's the
we've
best
had
number you've
we have
seen?
plenty over $1,000 an acre. We've done
Oh,
plenty of reports like that. You know, we just want to, much like the brokerage world, you guys want to manage your seller expectations, right? So we want to manage our buyer expectations as well.
ride that fine line of I want to be valuable to the client, but I don't want to oversell it to the point where I get a bad reputation. Yeah, that's
Exactly
fair.
right.
That's,
Yep.
that's fair. Okay, so let's talk about your testing. What does testing involve? Like if I get my seller to say call you guys and say, hey, we're gonna test this to see what the value is so that we can advertise this. Um, what what are you guys lead times? How long does it take? That kind of stuff.
Yeah. So we charge $10 per acre for soil testing.
Okay.
And that is going to be a full soil test. Again, that does include all of the back end agronomic consultation as well. So it's kind of packaged up nicely there for the client. But we always defer to what the land grant university in that person's state is wanting to see for soil testing. There's lots of different soil testing methods. So different actual in the lab, different methods of testing the soil. So every university kind of has a different approach to how that's done. So we make sure to follow those guidelines. And then as well as the question always comes up, well, how many samples do I need? That is going to vary a little bit per state as well. Most states have kind of a standard, you need one sample per 2.5 to 10 acres or something like that. One sample needs to represent 2.5 to 10 acres. So again, we always defer to what the university is looking for in that sense, and we feel that helps mitigate our clients' risk because we're following the rules.
Yeah, that makes sense. But so timing wise,
Yeah.
how much notice do we need to give you?
So we typically, assuming the weather is good and all goes well, we can usually get this turned around in roughly 2 weeks. If the ground is frozen, when the property changes hands, which happens in my area of the world, in your area of the world, Kobe, we may have a little bit longer of a lead time there, but typically 2 weeks is what we can expect. So
Very
right
good.
now we're under the gun with tax season, and occasionally we have clients saying, "Hey, can you get this done?" And we are scrambling. So
So does it still affect this tax date, the April 15th, then this year, or?
Yep.
and we have a number of clients that purchase farms, well, all throughout last year, of course, but they're in the land business, as you know. I would actually love to know, maybe Kobe, the percentage of land that transacts in the last quarter of the year.
Oh, you mean like on a percentage wise?
Yeah.
40 to 45%.
Yeah. So we have a number of farms that we're working on that transacted in December 31st for all intents and purposes, and it was frozen, and we're we're working on getting those out now. So
Yeah, quick turnaround time with that. We're like, is it unfrozen yet? We're like checking the weather, trying to figure out if we can get there. So
Yeah.
that makes it hard.
I suppose that's, yeah, you probably do a little running around here in the spring.
Oh yeah, especially with transactions that just happen around this time frame, because like we said, have to do the soil test before they apply fertilizer. So we had a client last week that was like, okay, just went closed on the property, and we're going to fertilize in a week. So can you be there on Tuesday? We're going to fertilize on Wednesday. And we're like, oh my gosh, it's like 4 days from now. Yeah, and we got it done. But, it's that time of year where everyone's applying fertilizer. So if you're closing around this time, you want to make sure you get that done.
Yeah. Well, no, like I said, I think it goes back to, it's like one of those planning deals where it needs to be in our prep and our pitch books, and to let people know that, hey, this is something that's out there, and let's it's going to cost you this X amount of dollars. It's going to cost you $10 an acre to find out, but it makes your land immediately worth this much more. So
yeah. And then we didn't talk about the investment for the reporting. So it's $10 an acre for the soil test and $30 an acre for the official reporting. So 40 altogether.
Right, but you're going to do the test and then decide whether or not you need to go forward.
Correct.
Right. No, that makes total sense. But all right, guys, well, if you don't mind, we're going to take a break, and we're going to come back and do one more segment if you've got time.
Sounds great.
All right, perfect. We will be right back.
Land isn't just dirt. It's where memories are made, families are raised, and livelihoods are built. But when it comes time to sell or buy, the weight of the decision is heavy. Where do you even start? Who can you trust to guide you? For too long, land transactions have been treated like a simple exchange. Numbers on a paper, a signature on a line. But it's more than that. At High Point Land Company, we don't just list land. We walk it, we learn its story, and we find the right buyer who understands its worth. You are not just another deal. You are the steward of something bigger. And we're here to help you navigate every step of the way. When it's time to sell, when it's time to buy, we're here. Because land is more than just land. It's your legacy.
All right, we're back here with Alec and Carly, the soil tax guys. Does that offend you at all, Carly, that you're a guy?
You can say it's soil tax gal whenever it's me.
Okay, it's the soil tax guys and gals.
No, it doesn't offend me. It's a great name.
I don't know.
It's funny how it came up too.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
No one could remember ASM, and Carly started finding out that people were saving her name in their phones as what the soil tax gal.
Soil tax gal. Yeah.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Yep. And so that's how the name came about.
Well, I'm saving you, Carly, as the soil tax guy in my phone. So I don't want to get in trouble for what you want to gender yourself as. So, all right. So going back to this process, I'm just like, my mind immediately goes to how this becomes valuable to my sellers, right? And especially, we were talking during the break. There is areas of the country where we've seen a significant gut punch as far as prices go, especially in those prices where you've got, we like to call it the black gold, the really, really good soil with no irrigation, stuff like that. That fluctuates a little bit, probably more than the part. My stuff will go up, but then it holds fairly well. Like we saw where some guys saw like a 10 or 12% correction last year in some of the parts of the country, we saw like less than a 2%. And we'll probably see 2, 3, 4 years of a 1 to 3% down, and then we'll have a pretty big gain once we get commodity prices back where we need them to be. And honestly, I think that, say whatever you want to about this administration, that I think commodity prices are probably going to rally in the next 18 to 20 months anyway. So I think we'll be okay, even with the tariff talks and all that. So how quickly can I use this? As far as like, if I'm telling my seller, let's go get this test done so that we have this little bargaining chip, right, for when we're still on our land, we could potentially make this thing worth instantly $500 an acre more, right? I mean, that's what you're saying.
There's the potential there, yeah. So, as far as from a mechanical standpoint, when a buyer purchases the land, their accountant is generally going to want to take this deduction in the year that it was incurred. We were talking earlier about why we've been running around so much this spring. Well, for those people that purchased in Q4 of 2024, they're trying to take advantage of this on their 2024 taxes. So there's that piece of it. Some accountants do opt to spread this out over 3 years. So they'll say, okay, maybe we don't need this full deduction amount or whatever. Again, we don't know everybody's tax situation, of course. Their accountants would infinitely better. And so the accountant might say, hey, let's actually spread this out over a 3-year time frame. And most of the time, how that looks is taking 60% the first year, 30% the second year, and then that final 10% the last year, the third year. So kind of spreads it out. If you're expecting decent incomes for the next couple of years, it may make sense to try to spread it out. If you're not expecting decent incomes, you may try to twist your accountant's arm to get it all in 1 year. It's hard to say. Like you mentioned, crop prices are quite low right now, and the next couple of years may be a little bit of a tough road. So packing in these deductions now may end up making more sense.
Yeah, I think the interest, like I said, told you earlier, I had a producer on earlier that was talking about running negative with soybeans right now and very, very small margin of profit on corn, and that's because he has some pretty good contracts. So, like definitely that's one of the things to consider too, is if you're a producer and you're probably going to have some losses, this is maybe not going to help you very much because it's a
Right.
tax break, right?
Could be.
Or you
And you
can
meant
go ahead.
sorry, go ahead. Sorry. I thought immediately of your question about how do you make this valuable to your sellers, right?
Yeah.
So if we're going into a situation where land prices may be down slightly, you mentioned a gut punch, and so land prices may be down, sellers may land may not be flying off the shelves like it was. I have, we none of us know, we can't crystal ball here, but this is valuable to the seller because they're taking the initiative to take a soil test and show that their land has been taken care of from an agronomic perspective. So that's valuable in itself to a buyer. I don't know about your area of the world, but it's rare for me to see a farmland marketing material and with a soil test on it. It's somewhat rare, and I think that would set the seller and you as by extension the broker apart from the competition by just having a soil test first off. And then the second piece is having that idea of, okay, we know that this farm is in good shape, and we can probably estimate that there's some per acre value there that the buyer could take advantage of. Again, it's only available to the buyer, but if the seller's savvy to the situation, they may say, okay, we want to help the buyer take advantage of that.
Man, that's smart because I mean, and again, like I just keep trying to wrap my head around how does that work for everybody, and like if you're gonna have it, I go back to is I always think of this as money, but sometimes it's not real money, right? It's you may not gain anything if you don't have any, if you're in negative taxes and you're not going to have any tax liability,
Sure.
which again, talking about farmers are pretty good about not having much tax liability most days. So, but still, I think that, like you said, I think that I can say I have a classification of soil, but I don't ever, I mean, to your point, I don't ever have a soil test that's run for, so that's an interesting idea too.
To your point about deductions, we've had this situation quite a bit, Carly, right? Recently, where we give an estimate to a farmland buyer, and their accountant says, "Well, you have more deductions than you need, or you're not making any money," and so there is always the possibility of deferring those losses.
Hmm.
Again,
Yeah.
we're not accountants, but that is
So
one
you
of
can,
the situations that we've run into, that accountants say, okay, we'll defer. They may take this soil fertility deduction, but defer a different deduction. Right?
gotcha.
We've seen
Gotcha.
that.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Yeah. So we don't maybe have to, because you can, there's all kinds of stuff. There's ways it's got my brain spinning. So I'm trying to,
Yeah.
there's lots of different things you can do. That's really, really cool.
I just remember this one guy saying, on Alec, what you were talking about, deferring other things. This is the one tax deduction where, if you don't use it, you lose it. And I remember when he said it like that, I was like, I mean, that's true. You have to take this in such a small window of time. It's better to defer other things so that way you can, use this type of tax deduction.
Well, and to circle back to what you were talking about with um, the accountant's difference between wanting to use it all in 1 year. I mean, like my guess is because they've met the government, right? So you just never know when somebody might
Yeah.
make this their hill to die on for whatever it is, And um, so yeah, so it might be the smart way to do it is like let's just take this today because we have it today. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just dig into a little bit of like I think we've kind of geared everything towards basically like row crop agriculture throughout this entire interview. We were talking during the break, pastures, um, ranches, whatever like whatever you want to call them. It has to be a pretty big chunk of land for us in Nebraska to call it a ranch. You go to Colorado, 50 acres qualifies. So I don't, like depends on who's marketing it. But it occurred to me like realistically, there's a lot of people that have bought ranches over the last couple of years that haven't fertilized it. Probably, I mean, unless you're counting the cows on it, maybe does that count if I got cows running around and
It's
fertilizing
all
it?
about dollars. It's all about dollars spent.
Okay, well, they're expensive.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right now I'd love to be a cattle rancher right now. Goodness. Uh, yeah, some of our best scenarios have been in the pasture environment. One that comes to mind was a pretty large ranch in one of the western states, and like the value came back at like $2,500 an acre, and the gentleman deferred quite a large amount of tax there. And so pasture is great. It is an agriculture. Again, we come back to, it's an agricultural activity. You are growing food for your animals to graze on in a pasture. So some of our best results actually have come from pasture. And it's funny, it's kind of counterintuitive, because I have people ask all the time, well, this probably won't work on pasture. Again, some of our best results have come from pasture.
That's pretty fascinating because it's like I'm always looking for a reason to create a value for myself in what I do. And so even that, if I can go search my clients, that have, or not even my clients, but my competition's clients, that have, hopefully they're not listening to this, but call those guys up and say, hey, did you think about this? Have you considered this? And so that's extremely, extremely smart. So, yeah, I just heard of a friend of mine. I don't know if they're using you guys or somebody else, but it's a similar project where they're using the soil test, the soil tax credit to, or soil tax exemption, whatever you want to call it. He turned a 2-deal thing into a 5-deal thing using this because there were people hanging out with some money, didn't know what to invest in, couldn't figure, like there was only about a 4.5%, 5% return if they were to invest in the land, whereas they thought they could go throw their money into the stock market and do better. And then they were able to bring this and get this instant tax credit. And so and so again, I see the value in it. It's just a matter of getting our clients to you guys to figure out and trusting you guys to make sure you're taking care of them. I think that's the big thing. And so not just running a bunch of tests and then, well, it didn't work, so that's why I like that 10 and 30 deal, it may cost 40 in the long run, but it only costs that much if the soil qualifies.
Exactly. Yep.
What did we not think of while we were doing this episode, guys? I mean, geez, I think I have a very simple amount of questions. You guys probably could ask each other questions for 5 minutes. And
right. Well, I think, stepping a little bit outside of the soil fertility world there, I mentioned earlier, everything that's kind of available to someone for deductions or depreciation. So if you're familiar with the commercial real estate world, commercial property buyers, they often have a company come in that does cost segregation studies, and that company will do a study on the building that they purchased and assign values to everything in the property. And they can really juice their returns on that commercial property. So this is something very similar, and we are actively working towards serving other areas outside of the fertility piece of this. We believe that while the soil fertility is an extremely valuable leg of what we're doing, we believe what we have coming down the line here is going to benefit clients even in an even greater way. So keep an eye out for that. There's so many things that clients should be taking advantage of when it comes to farmland appreciation.
that is I mean, it's just just a couple weeks ago we went to the land conference, and like just from everything from data centers to battery storage for power to like all the stuff. Like what was it? Somebody presented at the let's make a deal that they have a buyer looking for 100,000 acres of like mediocre to not great um farmland, pasture land that they can repopulate, like reforest it, for a carbon credit. I mean, it's just, we have gone from it's worth X amount of money because it grows corn to it's worth X amount of money and then some, it's worth this much because it grows corn. And then, if you work with Walmart, you get a carbon credit if you do these amount of things too. Now you can, if you don't fertilize and before you fertilize, you can get a tax credit. Just crazy amount of things that we got to pay attention to. So I appreciate the fact that you guys brought this to my attention. Carly, it was awesome to meet you and down in Arizona. I think that's where we were.
Yeah, that was fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So appreciate you guys sponsoring that too. That was that's a big thing for our organization. I think you met a lot of great people.
Mm-hmm.
It's really hard to hate those people when you go home and have to duke it out with them. But we just had a podcast on education, land education and stuff, and it was people that I compete against once in a while were on the podcast, and it was like, at least I'd like to lose to them and not somebody that just doesn't know anything, like. So, but well, guys, I appreciate the time and the information. And how do we get a hold of you folks? You guys, excuse me, you tax guys, how do we get a hold of you if we need you? What's your back symbol?
You can just send us an email. So send me an email, Carly, Karly, at asmlabs.net, or text 984-344-6169.
Perfect. And that'll get the ball rolling.
Yeah.
All right. And with your permission, I'll put your website and your contact information in the show notes for all the platforms that we're on. So that way people can find you if they need you.
Sounds good.
Definitely saving you in my phone under the tax, soil tax guys. So
Sounds like a plan.
all right, guys,
Well,
have
thank
a
you,
great
Kobe.
rest of your day, and we will see you all down the road.
As we wrap up another episode of the American Land Seller Podcast, thank you for joining us. Visit www.americanlandseller.com and find us on one of your favorite podcast platforms. If you would be so kind and you enjoyed today's insights, please like, subscribe, rate, follow, and review us on whatever app you are listening or watching on. Connect with us on social media for updates. Until next week, Kobe wishes you success in your land endeavors. God bless you and have a great week.
The American Land Seller is brought to you in part by landhub.com. Are you in the market for the perfect piece of land? Look no further than landhub.com, your solution to the biggest challenges facing land buyers and sellers today. At LandHub, we're revolutionizing land transactions by effectively connecting buyers and sellers. Say goodbye to the struggle of finding or marketing land for sale. We understand the power of new media marketing, leveraging social media and targeted ads to bring together the ideal audience for all property types. Join us today and experience the expertise of LandHub's land marketing professionals. Whether you're buying or selling, let us show you the way in the ever-evolving world of land transactions. Visit landhub.com and discover what the future of land marketing looks like. Landhub.com, where your land journey begins. And High Point Land Company. When it comes to buying and selling land, High Point Land Company sets the standard for excellence across the Midwest and beyond. Our expert land specialists bring unmatched market knowledge and a personal touch to every single transaction. Whether it's a farm, ranch, recreational, or even investment property, we provide the expertise and integrity you can trust. Looking to buy or sell? We offer a premier selection of properties and a marketing strategy designed to get you results. From productive farmland to recreational retreats, we help you maximize your investment. Visit www.highpointlandcompany.com today and experience the difference. High Point Land Company, a true leader in land sales.